Hey, how are you? Jefferson Airplane, high-flying bird. Today we're using the Jefferson Airplane, not high-flying. Whoa. Hey, whoa! Hey, get that light off of me.
Way up in the sky now.
Sorry.
Yes, and I wonder.
Got a new lighting man. He's a relative. I had to hire him.
Flies home by.
Anyway,
she's riding on the air. So
before we were so lightingly interrupted, what I was going to tell you was this story. I believe I told you was Mexico Jack in the Box Preflight. And this and the ones that follow will be the Mexican series. And so it starts out with my best friend for many years, since I first moved to Monterey many, many years ago. I was fortunate enough to meet Ted, who was quite the social person. So, you know, I'm a hermit. I don't socialize well at all. Even now, you know, knowing I'm a hermit, I have a few people that I am able to enjoy. But, you know, we don't want just anyone coming in. I can't take this only so much. Ask Nikki. Anyway, so Ted decides that it's time to go to Mexico for a vacation. Now, part of the reason that he got this bug in his saddle was because he had been down to this location in Mexico, I believe, the year before. So he knew all about it, and he knew how great it was, and that's why he was bound and determined to go down there again. And he also evidently was bound and determined that he wanted me to go with them. Now, as I've said, I've been a musician my whole life. And the way that works, at least non-union, you know, in a band in an obscure little hideaway town, is sometimes you have money, maybe even a lot of money. And there are times where you have no money at all. And so it goes from extreme to extreme because, you know, you either get a good paying gig or we sell some firewood or, you know, there's options. So oftentimes I didn't have any money or didn't spend it wisely when I did. You know, it's like, don't worry about the balance. If you have a lot of money, don't worry. It'll soon balance out to none, especially in my life. So anyway, Ted, you know, is going to Mexico, and he's taking me with him. Oh, okay, I didn't argue about it. You know, I never would have thought of it. I'm a hermit. I never did understand people's chattering on and yearnings about a vacation. All I needed to do was get a couple beers and sit in the corner of my little cabin or whatever it was, just quite contented. I didn't need a vacation. But that's before this happened. Once again, through Ted, my best friend Ted, I was about to have a whole new experience. So the way the story starts out is I happen to be living gratefully living in my parents' duplex in Santa Rosa at this time. I'm not living with Ted anymore at this current time. And my brother lived there with me 1 or 2 times. And I believe when this incident occurred, he was living there. So he was a witness. So anyway, it's the day before Ted plans to start driving down to L.A. to, you know, get to Mexico. So he drives up to our little duplex there at about, between 12 and 2, probably closer to 12. And as soon as he got there, as would happen, Ted and I would start drinking amazing amount of liquids. You know, it's been that way, he and I, since we met. And that's one reason we're such close friends. Now, the way that we know that we have extra drink abilities that other people don't have is because every time we went drinking with somebody, well, you know, somewhere along the trail they drop off and we just keep going. That's how we knew that we had, you know, particular abilities. So Ted arrives at noonish, like I said, and we just start drinking. And we're just having a gay old time, and just drank and drank and drank until about 2 in the morning, when the alcohol had taken its toll. No, we weren't drunk. We were starving. We had to have something to eat after all that liquid running through there. And it just so turns out that there's a Jack in the Box only about a block away from my little duplex there. So at 2 in the morning, Ted and I jump in his new van. I'll tell you about that. And we go on over to the Jack in the Box. And, excuse me. Thanks. So when you get to Jack in the Box, we weren't going in the restaurant. So what you do is you pull down the entry drive towards the back. And before you turn left to get into the actual line of, ordering and stuff, there's a gigantic, way oversized menu on the back wall from when you first drive in. And it's the menu for idiots. It's gigantic. So, of course, we were looking at it. And it turns out that you're not actually in line when you stop for that menu. As far as getting in line is concerned, well, what you do is you come up near the end of our van while we're looking at this menu, and you just turn left, and you turn left again, and you get up to the machine. Hi, this is Jack in the Box. May I take your order? That little box ordering deal. And from then on, once you order, they proceed to the next minute. So you go up to the front window, and you roll down your window so that you're ready to take the food and give them the money. And when they're ready, they open their window and business is done. Wonderful little system. So anyway, while we're looking at this great big wall menu, a sedan passes us and gets in line and starts ordering, and then goes up to the front window waiting for his food, where he is waiting with his window down. Well, I was incensed. How dare this SOB cut in front of us? Who the hell does he... I said, I'm kicking that guy's ass. And I don't know if there was somebody else besides Ted in the van, or just Ted, but either he or they said, no, don't do that. Wait, hold on. Enough of you. Boom, slammed the door, and boom, 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 stomped up to the Jack in the Box window, and stood in front of in between the car and the window. And like I say, the customer there had his window open because he was waiting for his order. So I just reached in the window and just started slapping him. Who the hell do you think you are, cutting in line in front of us? And he finally figures out, this poor gentleman, that if he just leaned away from the window a little bit, I couldn't slap him so well. And while he gets this minute to think a little bit without my slapping him, he says, hey man, I know karate. It's the same old deal. When somebody says, hey man, I know karate, they're just hoping for any kind of chance to get away. They don't know karate. Because if the gentleman had known karate, he wouldn't have mentioned that he just would have kicked my ass. He wasn't kicking my ass. But right about now, after he says, hey, I know karate, from behind me comes Ted, and he puts his hands on my shoulders, and he's just, it's okay, come on, it's okay, here we go, everything's all right, come on, no, come on. And he got me to go back to our van. And, Ted's doing that, calming me down and getting control of me with his hands on my shoulders. That reminds me of a James Brown concert. James Brown, the soul king. Well, what he would do live is, so halfway through the show or such, you'd had enough just to view quite a few songs and were just thoroughly entertained. And then at this one point in this song that for whatever reason, it just drained James Brown. and he just couldn't carry on. Band's still playing. James Brown drops to one knee and just lowers his head and gives in. He can't go on. Now, as James Brown assumes this lowered down, giving in position, out from the side of the stage comes a cohort cape bearer. So what this cape bearer does is he comes up behind James Brown, who's still kneeled down and is unable to carry on. Band's still playing. And he puts the cape over James Brown's shoulders and lifts him up, just like Ted. Lifts him up and, has James Brown lean on him and whatever. And Band's still playing. What the cape bearer and James Brown do is they very slowly make way to the side of the stage, the wings, so that James Brown can recover. So as things would happen, when James Brown and the cape barrier get almost off stage, James Brown breaks away from the cape and breaks away from the cape bearer and runs back to center stage, grabs the mic and says, "Hey!" And either continues the song that you were doing before or starts another one. You know, this whole cape routine could happen a few times in a concert. You couldn't do it too many times. It was just so great. Every time better than the last. Because once you knew it was coming, it was like, yeah, man, we're at the cape part of the show, you know. So anyway, that's what Ted reminded me of when he came back and got me from slapping this guy. And he puts his hands up and he says, "Okay, come on, here we go. Don't run it this way. No, don't do that. Come on, let's go." So it's funny that reminded me of James Brown. So anyway, we go back to the van, and, well, we can't wait in line anymore because, well, I could easily be arrested. So what we did is we drove out of the Jack in the Box, and we passed by the guy who's still in the sedan waiting at the window. And that's the last thing I remember. And I'm thinking the reason for that is that all the slapping and emotional, affected the adrenaline, and all that adrenaline mixed with all those liquids. Well, I didn't remember anything else that happened that night. Last thing I remember is us driving away from Jack in the Box and seeing that car still there. So I was confused. Yeah, I was confused. Because I woke up in the morning, and this particular time when my brother lived there, we had two Lazy Boy chairs. One on the this side for me, and one on the other side. It's a TV viewing room. And then there's a couch in the middle. Well, I was confused because the Lazy Boys are just dreams to sleep in. It's great for diabetes, too. I'm hoping to get a new one here because your feet are so raised and your butt's low, and then your head, you can go back as far as you want. It's so easy to sleep, and I slept in a lot when I was in that duplex. Very easy to not go to bed. So, but I was confused because I woke up and there were Jack in the Box food debris litter everywhere. Me in the lazy chair, all around me, all around the chair, all around the floor, all around Ted, all around Rick, all around the living room. And I say, what the heck is this? We didn't go to Jack in the Box. We had to leave because what I did. And Ted says, "Oh, that." Yeah. Well, you're right. We did have to leave Jack in the Box because of you. However, being in the certain location that we were in Santa Rosa, it just so happens that we were actually fairly close to another Jack in the Box. So what Ted does with it, I no longer remember, is we go to another Jack in the Box, and I'm thinking we don't stop and look at that great big wall for dummies, you see. I believe we just turned the corner and went to Jack in the Box, may I take your order? And, got our food booty and made it on home. So that's the pre-flight portion of the story. And I think we'll just cut it off right there because that's really all there is of the pre-flight story. So, hey, treat each other well. Nice to see you. Okay, they're going to time it just right for us. See ya, bye.